Lecture 10. Translation Determinacy. Translations are generally construed as products of the underlying determinacy or indeterminacy, both of which squarely rest on text types or purpose. Yet they are not absolute. They display a spectrum of high, low, and zero. In maximum indeterminacy, source texts lend themselves to more than one acceptable version in the target language, whereas zero indeterminacy is tantamount determinacy wherein only one version is not acceptable but feasible, as explicitly evinced in the translation of poetry for indeterminacy and legal texts for determinacy. Text type determinacy. Determinacy of translation simply signifies that there should only be one single product in the target language. One case in point is the word-for-word translation, or Dryden's metaphase, where source language individual words are replaced by target language words, with sometimes strict adherence to the source language word order. But due to the linguistic and cultural discrepancies between source language and target language, such literal translations, especially of expressive or emotive texts, are awkward, unnatural, unintelligible, and even unreadable because literalism distorts the sense and the syntax of the original, embeds the translator's work, and stifles his creativity. This is why machine translation, which basically performs mere replacement or simple substitution of words in one language for words in another, has succeeded in dealing with standardized texts, employing plain, formulaic language such as weather reports, government documents, and some legal texts. Legal texts are determinedly translated to ensure precise correspondence of the rights and duties in the source text, and in the translation wherein only one accurate version is accepted in both the source and target texts. The language is a very distinct variety characterized by precision, plainness, and clarity. Documents like contracts or wills, for instance, are formulaic and frozen or even fossilized so that a contract or will written or translated in the wrong formula and not according to the standardized form in both languages is not a contract or will. This holds true for the other legal texts such as agreements, certificates, government documents, insurance policies, powers of attorney, and testaments, among others. Here are some examples. عقد إيجار, lease contract or lease agreement. عقد إيجار وحدة سكنية, dwelling unit rental agreement. This contract agreement, indenture made and signed this 10th day of July 2009 between as a lessor and as a lessee, witnesses. تحرر هذا العقد يوم 10 تموز سنة 2009 بين كل من مؤجر ومستأجر. تقرر ما يلي: that the lessor has this day leased to the lessee the premises situated in to be occupied by the lessee as a residence, or insert any other purpose for which the building is leased for, and during the term commencing on the first day of July 2009 and ending on the 30th day of January 2010 upon the terms and conditions hereinafter set forth. أجر المؤجر اليوم إلى المستأجر العقار الكائن لشغله كمسكن، أو يذكر هنا أي غرض آخر، التي تبدأ من اليوم الأول من شهر تموز من العام 2009 وحتى اليوم، ومن أجله المبنى طوال الفترة 30 من حزيران من العام 2010 بموجب الشروط الموضحة في ما بعد. The lessee shall pay to the lessor as rent the sum of 500 Iraqi dinars, payable in advance in equal monthly installments, upon the first day of each and every month during the term hereof. Or it is agreed this day, 20th of July 2009, by and between landlord and tenant. تم الاتفاق يوم 20 من تموز من العام 2009 بين كل من مالك ومستأجر that a landlord hereby lets to tenant the premises situated in upon the following terms and conditions. على أن يؤجر المالك العقار الكائن فيه بموجب الشروط التالية. So that was an example, dear students. Now we will present the Scopus Determinacy, which is an approach to translation. It is an approach to translation developed by Vermeer in 1989 to meet the growing need in the latter half of the 20th century for the translation of scientific and academic papers, instructions for use, tourist guides, and some legal texts such as contracts. According to Scopus theory, translation is the production of a functionally appropriate target text based on an existing source text, and the relationship between the two texts is specified according to the scopus of the translation. Now, scopus means the purpose. The theory even proclaims that unless the scopus of the target text is specified, translation cannot, properly speaking, be carried out at all. So this is according to Baker, 2005. Besides, the scopus or the intended purpose of the target text sometimes determines translation methods and strategies, or in other words, the process determines the product. Process determinacy of the product. Now we are about to have static versus dynamic in English into Arabic translation, and we will come through some new terms like static translation and dynamic translation. Let's find out the difference between the two. Translation is not only determined by text type as seen in translating legal texts, but also by the method, approach, strategy, or technique which lays constraints on the translator who commits himself to adopting it. If he or she, for instance, opts to formal equivalence, which brings about a static translation, perhaps because of being incompetent or ignorant of the dynamic type which utilizes the target language potentiality, as might be demonstrated in the following examples, employing an Arabic prefix. He deemed the matter easy. اعتبر المسألة سهلة. She asked him for mercy, but his heart has turned into stone. سألته الرحمة ولكن قلبه تحول إلى حجر. He drew water from the well. سحب الماء من البئر. The dynamic counterparts of the above sentences employ the Arabic prefix kana, which expresses request, new state, or change. استسهل الأمر. So this is the counterpart of اعتبر المسألة سهلة. استسهل الأمر. The counterpart of سألته الرحمة ولكن قلبه تحول إلى حجر. استرحمته فاستحجر قلبه. So dear students, let's take a good look at the first example. He deemed the matter easy. According to the static translation, now the translation into Arabic should be اعتبر المسألة سهلة أو سهلة. Now the dynamic counterpart of the same translation or of the same sentence in the source language will be, according to the dynamic translation, استسهل الأمر. استسهل الأمر. Now the second example, she asked him for mercy, but his heart has turned into stone. سألت, according to the static translation or according to static translation, the translation into Arabic should be or may be سألته الرحمة ولكن قلبه تحول إلى حجر. Now, according to the dynamic translation, or according to dynamic translation, the counterpart should be استرحمته فاستحجر قلبه. The third example, he drew water from the well. He drew water from the well. Now, according to the static translation, the translation would be سحب الماء من البئر. سحب الماء من البئر. According to the dynamic translation, now the translation into Arabic would be استسقى من البئر. استسقى من البئر. Now you can realize the difference between the two techniques to translation. Now, according to the Scopus theory, okay, so we have static translation and also we have dynamic translation. If the translator is competent enough, and he's very, very competent and well-versed, he will resort to the dynamic translation of texts, of the source text, into the target text. By the same token, the translator employs the accusative bound morpheme or prefix ألف التعدي to produce a dynamic rather than a static translation. Too much food made him sick. Now the static translation, henceforth, static translation would be جعله الطعام الكثير مريضا. جعله الطعام الكثير مريضا. The dynamic translation would be of the same sentence would be أمرضه إفراطه في الطعام. Now this technique is, if you want to resort to the dynamic translation of the source language text into the target language, you have to employ the accusative bound morpheme in Arabic, or the prefix ألف التعدي. أمرضه إفراطه في الطعام. So this is the counterpart of what? جعله الطعام الكثير مريضا. Let's take some more examples. The sad news made her cry. The sad news made her cry. Or the sad news caused her to cry. Let's take the static translation of the above mentioned sentence. جعلتها الأنباء الحزينة تبكي. Now the dynamic counterpart would be أبكتها الأنباء الحزينة. أبكتها الأنباء الحزينة. You can tell the difference. According to the dynamic translation, or to dynamic translation, now the translator have used the accusative bound morpheme or ألف التعدي. أبكتها. أبكتها. Likewise, the translator uses the Arabic verbal sentence instead of one starting with verb to be كان, a verb to be كان, or with a noun or preposition, a noun or preposition. His two hands were tired. His two hands were tired. Now let's take a good look on both the static and the dynamic translations of the same sentence. كانت يداه متعبتان. Now this is according to static translation. كانت يداه متعبتان. The dynamic translation of the same sentence would be, or the counterpart would be, كلت يداه. كلت يداه. Now the translator uses the Arabic verbal sentence instead of one starting with verb to be كان, or with a noun or preposition. كلت يداه. So it is difficult to understand the question. So this is another example, another illustrative example. من الصعب فهم السؤال. It is difficult to understand the question. Now, according to static translation, the translation would be, into Arabic would be, من الصعب فهم السؤال. According to dynamic translation, يصعب فهم السؤال. يصعب فهم السؤال. Let's take some more examples. Children are afraid of dogs. Children are afraid of dogs. According to the static translation, الأطفال خائفون من الكلاب. الأطفال خائفون من الكلاب. The dynamic translation, or the dynamic counterpart, would be يخشى الأطفال الكلاب. Here is another example of an illustrative example of the static and the dynamic translations. It was night. All was quiet. There was utter silence. كان الوقت ليلا. So this is the static translation of the previously mentioned sentence. كان الوقت ليلا وكان كل شيء هادئا وكان هناك صمت تام. Now this is static translation of the previously mentioned or the above mentioned sentence in English. The dynamic translation of the same sentence would be حل الليل وهدأ الكون وساد صمت مطبق. So, in the following extract from Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms, the Arabic translator or Arab translators or the Arabic translator Munir al-Baalbaki has opted to adopt a formal equivalence, thus producing a static translation wherein he 7 times or the 7 times as equivalent to was, where instead of can repeats the Arabic verb to be dynamic translation wherein in the sentence are introduced with ordinary verbs. So, I repeat. So this is an extract taken from Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms. Munir al-Baalbaki, and he's a very famous Arabic translator, has opted to adopt a formal equivalence, thus producing a static translation where he 7 times repeats the Arabic verb to be kana as dynamic translation wherein in the sentences are introduced with ordinary verbs. Let's take the source text. The plain was rich with crops. There were many orchards of fruit trees, and beyond the plain the mountains were brown and bare. There was fighting in the mountains, and at night we could see the flashes from the artillery. In the dark was like summer lightning, but their nights were cool, and there was no the feeling of a storm coming. So this extract is taken from A Farewell to Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms by. So, a static translation determined by formal equivalence, according to Munir al-Baalbaki, would be كان السهل غنيا بالمحاصيل كان ثمة كثير من جنائن الأشجار المثمرة ووراء السهل كانت الجبال سمراء عارية كان القتال دائرا في الجبال وخلال الليل كان في استطاعتنا أن نرى وميض المدافع وكان يخيل للمرء في الظلمة وكأنه برق الصيف ولكن الليالي كانت باردة ولم نكن نستشعر أن عاصفة توشك أن تهب. Let's identify the dynamic counterpart of this extract of taken from Hemingway, A Farewell to Arms. Now remember, this is according to the famous and a prominent figure in the field of translation, Munir al-Baalbaki. سهل غني بالمحاصيل كثرت فيه جنائن الأشجار المثمرة ومن ورائه اسمرت الجبال وتعرت حيث دار فيها القتال وخلال الليل استطعنا رؤية وميض المدافع بدا في الظلمة كأنه برق الصيف لكن الليالي لطفت حرارتها ولم يساورنا إحساس بأن عاصفة آتية. Thank you very much, dear students, for listening. I'm so happy to hear from you, and please feel free to ask any question you want. You can contact me whenever you want. You know how to find me. So all I can say, yeah, stay at home, be safe, and I look forward to meeting you in the near future, inshallah.